Ludwig II was a Bavarian king, well known for his lavish castles. If you think they look a bit Disney-esque, that's because they are. Or rather, it was Ludwig's castles that inspired a young Walt Disney. Ludwig ruled for a short time before he was declared mentally unfit, and that's about all the historical fact that this review is going to contain, because today I wanted to introduce you to one of my top 10 favourite games of all time, Castles of Mad King Ludwig by Bezier Games. Having recently crowdfunded a new collector's edition, the original edition is still widely available and I would thoroughly recommend picking it up. I'm James Bruce and you're watching Tabletop Dungeon Board Game Reviews. Castles of Mad King Ludwig is in essence a tile-laying game in which you play a builder, piecing together rooms of a castle, trying best to cater to the fanciful whims of King Ludwig II. The king's desires change each game though, not only the shared goals that everyone can see, but your private requests that the king has assigned just to you. So right there, you've already got a huge amount of replay value that can dramatically affect how you tackle each game and how your castle turns out. It plays 1 to 4 players and I'd say ages 10 and up. We have played a few times with my 6-year-old son, and while he understands the connected rooms concepts and can take his turn just fine, the strategy involved with price setting is a little bit too complex. In terms of reliance on text and language, I'd say it's accessible to most people in any language with clear symbols and coloured rooms. The only hint cards I needed to make for the Chinese in-laws were a translation of the completed room bonuses. However, those with colour blindnesses may have trouble distinguishing between the pastel shades on the room tiles, but there are also icons printed on each card too. For this review today, I'm not going to give a full how to play rules overview. Instead, I'm going to discuss the 3 things that you need to know about Castles of Mad King Ludwig, which are critical to how the game plays and therefore your enjoyment of it. First up is the price setting mechanism. So each round, players take it in turns to be the master builder. The master builder is the one who determines the price of rooms available to buy that round, ranging from 1,000 to 15,000 florins in a full 4-player game. Other players then purchase and place a room, but they pay the construction cost of that room to the master builder, to whoever it was that set the price. The master builder then also gets a turn to buy and place a room, however they pay the cost to the bank. Anyone can also pass their turn and opt instead to receive 5,000 florins from the bank instead of buying a room, but for the most part players will earn an income when it rolls around to be their turn to be the master builder. Rooms that aren't purchased each round get 1,000 florins added to them, giving a little bit of cashback for future potential buyers. The price setting mechanism is fantastic, one which forces you to consider not just the obvious factors like a high scoring room should probably be assigned a high price, but also which room tiles are most advantageous to your fellow players and the most you think they'd be willing to pay for those rooms. If they only have 6,000 florins and you know there's a particular room that they really want, don't put it on 8,000 or they just won't buy it. Or do, because you're a But at the same time, don't make them so cheap that you're basically just giving them free points. On the other hand, don't make the good tiles too expensive or you'll be left penniless, as all the other players might opt to simply pass that turn instead, receiving a small amount from the bank. And you also need to consider that as the master builder, you're going to have last choice on what to buy. Will there be anything worthwhile left to buy? Can you sneak a worthless looking but actually quite valuable to you room tile into the cheapest slot and grab a bargain? Or should you make that room that you really want completely unaffordable for everyone else in case one of them also happens to want to buy it? There's so many things to consider. It's great, but you may find yourself stuck with a little bit of analysis paralysis at this crucial stage of the game, which can be a little bit frustrating to everyone else who isn't the master builder. The second thing you should know about Castles of Mad King Ludwig is that you're actually building a castle. You're not just putting cards next to each other in some vague conceptual way. You're building an oddly shaped unique castle with rooms and corridors and staircases and connecting them all up together. The single greatest strength of castles is at the end of it, you've built a stunningly good-looking castle no matter how badly you played, to the point that you'll probably want to Instagram it. Here, look at what I made. You may even be making your own little backstory as to what exactly is going on with that curious corridor, or why the builders made a staircase from the Queen's bedroom that leads directly to a bottomless pit. You may end up with a sprawling mess, or perhaps a compact collection of interconnected rooms that make great use of every inch, with not a single unconnected doorway. You'll have gardens overlooking the torture chambers, or perhaps hastily placed the reading room next to the bowling alley. That, by the way, will lose you points because nearly every room in the castle has a bonus or penalty for certain room placements. Noisy rooms are quite troublesome, with penalties for being next to pretty much any other room, but typically themselves have high point values. Each room tile also has 1 to 4 doors. Now these must be connected to at least one other door when you place the tile initially, though by the end of the game you don't have to have strictly connected all of the doors to other rooms. However, if you do manage to connect every door in a certain room tile, you'll get an immediate bonus. Things like some bonus points, some cash, or even another turn. Optimizing your score by clever placement of room tiles and being able to connect all the doors properly is critical to winning the game. But don't worry, if you suck at that, you'll still have an awesome looking castle at the end of the game. Castles of Mad King Ludwig is just a beautiful game. The artwork, the resulting castle, the character oozing from the individual rooms, it's all just rather lovely. The third thing you should know, and it's the one thing I really don't like about castles, is the overly complex scoring mechanisms, particularly at the end of the game. The immediate scoring and bonuses or penalties associated with laying a single room are tolerable. The only complexity arising when you have a number of rooms connecting, each of which then infers a bonus or a penalty. But at the final scoring round, it can feel like just too much counting and comparing numbers. Especially with 4 players and with new players, this invariably means you'll be doing all of the counting for them. For instance, there's a particular king's favour given for the number of doorways left unconnected. This involves painstakingly looking at every doorway in every room in your castle, determining if it counts towards the total or not, because not all doorways do, trying to remember the number, then comparing that number with up to 3 other players, and probably having to count theirs for them as well because they don't quite understand what they were actually counting. And no, those corridors ones don't count, sorry. The person with the most open doors gets the full 8 points, the next gets 4, the next 2. But if you had the same number as someone else, then you add both of those bonuses together and you split it up rounding down. Or perhaps one of the favours that rewards total square footage of a particular room type, indicated by the small number in the corner. Add up all of those numbers and then compare those. Oh, and you haven't finished that. Then you're going to compare your private bonus cards, and maybe you had a separate bonus on there for every 2 open doors. Do you remember how many open doors you had? No, because you were too busy counting everyone else's. Too bad, count them again, then divide by 2 and add that total to your score. And then count how many rooms you had of that particular depleted room size deck, because you get 2 points for every one of those that's in your castle too. Wait, what? The final scoring just feels overly complex, to the point that if the open doors bonus check comes out, I just throw it back and pick another one now. I mean, sure, it's doable, but inevitably this role of being the number cruncher will probably fall to you. And as far as I know, there's no app that can help you count it up. It's just a case of something to learn and slog through at the end of the game. And even when you know what you're doing, it's going to add another 10-15 minutes onto the final part of the game. But I'll say this, even with the complex endgame scoring, Castles is one of my all-time top 10 favourite games, possibly even top 5. It's a tile placement puzzle game at heart, so if you enjoy those, you'll probably like Castles of Mad King Ludwig too. Highly recommend it. And if you need a little more, the Secrets expansion adds a moat and castle walls, which restrict the area you can build in, making you consider placement much more seriously, but rewarding you handsomely if you can manage it. It also adds in some secret corridors that give you a little more flexibility in placement while negating the room placement penalties. And then there's some bizarre thing involving swan tokens that I admit I've never used. Anyway, if you enjoyed this review, please press that thumbs up icon. I know it seems like a pointless gesture, but actually it tells YouTube that you'd recommend this review to other people, and then my videos get ranked a bit higher because of it. That's always good. Also, consider subscribing for more game reviews. I don't post often, this isn't my day job, so don't worry about me flooding your homepage. Until next time, thanks for watching and happy gaming.